The Indian independence movement, which later became known as the War of Independence in the subcontinent, was an important turning point in the history of both India and Pakistan. It was marked by a struggle for freedom from British colonial rule that lasted for over 90 years, and it resulted in the largest mass migration in the history of humankind. Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. Today's question of the video is how mass migration leads to millions of deaths. So let's get into our time machine and take a look at the history of mass migration. Independence movement. It all started in the latter half of the 19th century. Leaders such as Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, and Sardar Patel launched the movement that would eventually lead to India's independence. The Indian National Congress was one of the organizations that had the greatest impact on the movement after it was established in 1885. They fought for independence by engaging in non-violent activities such as civil disobedience, non-cooperation, and peaceful protests. On the other hand, the British government's response was one of repression and violence, which resulted in a chain reaction of significant events that ultimately led to independence. One of the most significant was the Amritsar massacre of 1919, which occurred when British troops opened fire on a peaceful crowd of protesters in Amritsar, India, and caused the deaths of over 400 people. The event sparked widespread outrage and added momentum to the independence movement. The British government, which was feeling the pressure of World War II, made the announcement in 1940 that it would hand over sovereignty to the Indians after the war was over. Following this announcement, there was a rise in the number of people calling for India's immediate independence. In response, in 1942, the Congress initiated the Quit India movement, which demanded that British troops be immediately withdrawn from India. The Great Calcutta Killing. This announcement resulted in a number of actions, one of which was known as the Great Calcutta Killing or the Direct Action Day. These events took place in 1946 and turned the city of Calcutta into a war-torn and chaotic mess. There were bodies all over the place, houses were set on fire, and businesses were trashed. Both the Muslims and the Hindus carried out attacks against each other's communities. They kidnapped underage girls, young ladies, and elderly women during the daytime hours and then raped and murdered them. Between 5,000 and 10,000 people were killed, and 15,000 others were injured as a result of the violence that lasted for 4 days. Following its outbreak in Calcutta, the riots spread to a number of other major cities across India, including Mumbai, Delhi, and Lucknow, amongst others. The riot between Hindus and Muslims shook the British to the core, and as a result, they came to the conclusion that partition was unavoidable. Since Mountbatten believed that the longer they waited, the more disagreements would arise, so he made the decision to leave India and declared partition in 1947, 1 year earlier than originally planned. Muhammad Ali Jinnah welcomed the partition of India and hoped to become the first Prime Minister of the newly formed nation of Pakistan. Jawaharlal Nehru gave his consent, albeit with reluctance. Gandhi was opposed to the British plan, but it was too late to change their minds because they were in a rush. At this point, the leaders were prepared to carry out the partition. Mountbatten made a request to Radcliffe to partition the country based on the religious makeup of its population. Radcliffe's knowledge of India was extremely limited. He was completely ignorant with regard to Bengal and Punjab. However, a man of such inexperience was only given 5 weeks to create a map that would ultimately result in the relocation of millions of people. He drew the map using the out-of-date maps and census data, dividing Pakistan, which has a Muslim majority, and India, which has a Hindu majority. However, his pen traversed 2 of the most important provinces in British India, Bengal and Punjab. Divide Bengal and Punjab. The region of Bengal with a Muslim majority, now known as Bangladesh, joined Pakistan, while the region of Bengal with a Hindu majority joined India. East Punjab, which had a majority Sikh and Hindu population, joined India, whereas West Punjab, which had a majority Muslim population, joined Pakistan. Following this, the so-called borders were established, resulting in the formation of two new nations, India and Pakistan. But out of the blue, both nations were rocked by a significant influx of new residents. Mass migration. Independence Day was celebrated in India and Pakistan on August 15, 1947, marking their departure from British rule. However, this event was marked by the largest mass migration in the history of humankind, with millions of people being compelled to flee their homes and cross national borders in order to survive. New outbreaks of violence have occurred all over India and Pakistan, including ethnic cleansing, arson, riots, looting, and vandalism. People began to move around. The villagers began dismantling their homes and leaving the area. They were moving while taking their livestock, cats, and belongings with them. Women were moving while holding their infants on their laps, and men were moving while having their belongings carried on their shoulders in sacks. Some peaceful Hindus and Muslims were seen hugging and shaking hands with one another. They both had tears running down their cheeks. They waved goodbye to their century-old parental homes and set off for a location that was a mystery to them. A journey of desperation had begun. Suddenly, the tranquil, unpaved country roads transformed into routes traveled by migrants. They were all moving. Those who were Hindu were going to India, and those who were Muslim were going to Pakistan. The people who were forced to leave their homes traveled by foot, rode in bullock carts, and traveled by train. A great number of people embarked on a journey that would take them days, if not weeks, to complete. During the harrowing journey, children and elderly people both died of starvation, with the former experiencing frequent coughing and sudden cessation of breathing. Vultures picked at the dead bodies of humans that had been strewn across the roadside ditches after their deaths. They lost their homes suddenly and were forced to seek shelter in makeshift shacks within the refugee camps. Diseases quickly spread throughout those unhealthy camps, which led to a rise in the number of fatalities. About 15 million people were forced to find new homes as a result of the partition, which also resulted in more than 1 million deaths and the kidnapping and sexual assault of thousands of women. Besides the brutal British legacy of divide and rule, the partition kept India and Pakistan in a long-term enmity that has resulted in 3 major wars between the two countries. So, what do you guys think about the history of this mass migration? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below. That's all for this video. Like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notifications for more such videos. See you in the next video. Till then, take care. Thanks for watching.